Hello, friends, and welcome to our interview segment. I'm Fraser Anderson. I'm not Phoenix. I've not changed my name. Phoenix is the name of a conference room, actually a lovely conference room here in our space in Kogo Labs. We are bringing a hybrid recording from the team. Today, I'm very lucky to be joined by my partners, Kelly Shaw and Nick Kim, who have just returned from Money 2020, which is, well, it's the event in FinTech. They're going to share with us some stories, some lessons, and maybe a little bit more on some of the relationships that they've built over the past couple of weeks. Without further ado, I suspect some of you are wondering what Money 2020 is, and I can think of no better person to kick it off than Kelly. So Kelly, tell us what Money 2020 is.
So Money 2020 is, to my understanding, the largest fintech conference in the United States. I would argue it's the best attended. It typically gets around 20,000 attendees. The vast majority actually do not pay for tickets, and so I can go into that. But the conference itself is from Sunday to Wednesday in Vegas in the Venetian and consists of a number of speakers. There's this kind of startup competition. There's a set of booths across the floor. And then there's a ton of activity outside the actual conference space. So your typical networking, and then in the evening, there's a number of happy hours. There was a Post Malone concert this year. And so tends to be a very exhausting, but very fun experience.
So aside from the gondola rides and the campaniles at the Venetian, what made this year so special about Money 2020?
Sure. Well, sadly, I did not have time for the gondola ride, but I attended last year, which was the first time I was in person since COVID. I would argue that there were a lot less attendees last year as COVID was still top of mind. I remember actually being very nervous that I was going to come back with COVID, which thankfully I did not. And so I think this year was really special as it was the first year it felt like the conference was fully back, just from talking to all the different attendees. I would also argue that the Post Malone concert also made it quite the special experience on my side. It was pretty cool. And I felt like I got to see almost all of my, fintech friends and make some new ones.
Nick, if I'm not mistaken, this is your first kind of full bore in-person conference, correct?
Yes, so Money 2020 is like the kind of first really big conference that I've gone to, kind of focused on the fintech world.
Quite an experience to get blooded at. So I would love to get your take on what was surprising to you on your first time.
Yeah, so I guess I would say it was probably just as chaotic as everybody has said. It's everything's back to back meetings, and then happy hours. There's probably two or three for any given hour. And I think what was really surprising to me is kind of really seeing the whole fintech ecosystem really in one place at a moment in time, or at least a lot of it. You always hear about how big fintech is and how fast it's been growing over the past few years, but I think seeing how many people in one place who all love fintech is something like that was really surprising to me, and it's kind of hard to grasp.
And for either of you, this is a jump ball. What were the topics of conversation? Our viewers, presumably that are watching, are also very interested in fintech. So what's going on at the bleeding edge? What are the brightest minds talking about right now?
Yeah, I can start. I would say probably one of the biggest top of mind was, frankly, the market volatility, which is probably of no surprise. So everything from conversations with fellow investors around how active they were or were not, how they were thinking about positioning their portfolio for the current environment and for 2023. And then, of course, the same for the founders and kind of some of the larger corporations that we spoke with.
Nick?
Yeah, and I think something like another theme that I heard from, I think, a lot of investors that I spoke to were kind of around a lot of investors spending a lot more time, I guess, looking into like the office of the CFO type of, I guess, like trend. So looking at a lot of those types of, like, whether it's revenue analytics companies to like kind of building infrastructure for like digital lenders and things like that. That was another pretty big trend that I saw, at least speaking to investors and even founders as well.
I know a number of our portfolio companies were represented there. Another jump ball question: did any moments with the portfolio companies stick out to you that would be fun to call out or share?
I would say lunch was particularly fun. I think always getting to spend more time personally with our founders and get to know them is great. And then on top of it, I ran into a number of our founders at happy hours, and just being able to facilitate some connections with other people I knew that could lead to either potential commercial opportunities or funding opportunities down the line was special to me.
Absolutely fabulous. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, and I think like, I guess it's not as close as to along the lines of work, but like Kelly and I had the pleasure of spending time with a couple of our founders till pretty late at night at like an offshoot of a Cheesecake Factory restaurant, and having like fried cauliflower and whatnot was a lot of fun, just getting to know the founders like on a more personal level, and things like that.
And gambling with them as well.
Yes.
Absolutely fabulous. We it's good to get into the foxholes of sort of PF Chang's and other fine eateries with our founders and hit the roulette table. Well, thank you so much for making the time. You know, we've been having a tremendous amount of FOMO since you came back. It sounds like we're more likely than not to send the whole team next year. So I think for the viewers, you know, 2023's Money 2020 interview edition, we'll have even more participation from Vestigo, and hopefully that many more stories. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.